Welcome everyone to week 4 of the Spring 2021 Career Speaker Series. The Career Speaker Series is sponsored by the College of Marin, the Marin County Office of Education, and the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. The Career Speaker Series will be held from 4 to 5 p.m. on Wednesdays through May 5th, excluding April 7th. Today's program will cover the topics of hospitality, hotel management, and housing law. To get us started, we're going to do a quick round of introductions. We will each introduce ourselves in the order in which we are listed on this slide. My name is Zita Williams, and I work for the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. Alex, your turn.
Sorry, I'm Alex Jones, Program Coordinator, College of Marin, Career Services.
Now, Michael, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Michael Pace. I'm the General Manager at the Intercontinental Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Tahirah. I'm a staff attorney at Legal Aid of Marin.
Thank you so much. Welcome so much, and thank you for taking an hour out of your afternoons to come and talk to our students, our job seekers, and our community members. We will be recording this webinar. So for those of you who haven't been to one of our Career Speaker Series webinars before, you might ask, why are we offering a Career Speaker Series? And so we would like to expose you to some of our local professional experts. We'd like to introduce you to jobs that you might not have known about before. And we'd like to help you make informed decisions about the next steps in your career path. So welcome and thank you for coming. What to expect today? So the presentation hour will include an introduction like we're doing right now, speaker presentations, and question and answer time. Please use the chat function of the webinar to ask your questions. Webinar registration. If you did not sign up for all 10 of the Career Speaker Series webinar sessions, to sign up for another date, use the main registration link. And here's our schedule for the rest of the semester. If you have any questions or comments, please email either Alex or myself. Thanks so much. We'll make sure to put our emails in the chat. And with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Michael.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I appreciate being here today. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Michael Pace. I'm the General Manager at the Intercontinental Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco. And I'll get back to that a little bit later on. But before we start, I just wanted to clarify something in case there's any questions. Hospitality really is about hotels and not hospitals. And I'm just saying this because I've had people in the past think I work in a hospital. And whilst I respect doctors, I prefer working in a hotel. So today I'm going to talk to you about my career and my perspective on why it's so awesome to work in hotels. I've been in hospitality for about 25 years. I'm managing this beautiful property in San Francisco, and I absolutely love it. Every single day, love coming to work. It's what I was meant to do. It took me a while to figure that out, but once I did when I was younger, there's no turning back. And that's why I'm talking to you today. I just want to share with you some of the passions around hospitality and the myriad of choices you have if you were to choose a career, similar to the way I did many years ago as well. In fact, tourism and hospitality are one of the largest industries in the world. Tourism in itself globally is responsible for over $9 trillion worth of business in pretty much every country in the world. And I don't know how to quantify trillion, but I know it's a lot. And there's over 8 million jobs associated with hospitality and tourism just in the United States. So just knowing that if you choose hospitality, know there's plenty of jobs at all different levels in all different areas and with amazing opportunities. In fact, I'd like to say this before we get going. Whatever you're thinking of, wherever you're at in your thought process, whether you're a student at high school or you're looking for a career change, hospitality has something for everybody. And that's what I've realized working in the industry. There are so many different facets to working in a hotel or in a business associated with a hotel. It's really quite exciting. And there's so many opportunities that really the list just goes on and on. So if you're willing to work in a hotel, you can do it. irrespective of your job skill right now or your perceived job skill, it's really attitude. If you want to do it, if you want to work with people or in a people industry, there are a lot of opportunities for you. You just need to work your way up or go and study, and then you work your way up. And I'll talk about that later on as well. But let me tell you a little bit about myself, just to give you kind of the story selling side of how I got here to be running this iconic hotel in San Francisco. I grew up in Europe, and unsure of what I was going to do when I was in high school, my mom said, why don't you just become a dentist? They'll call you Dr. Pace, you'll be respected, you make a lot of money, and you only work Monday through Friday being a doctor. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll just do that. I just didn't know what to do. I was very confused, and I was very scared of making the wrong decision for my future career. So I started studying a bit more to get ready for dentistry, and realized I did not want to be looking at people's mouths the rest of my life, and stumbled across hospitality. And I was like, I need to work with people. I want to work with people. And so I changed. I was about 23 years old and went to hotel school and did that for a few years. I actually got a diploma, which is in between a junior college and a university degree. So it's more of a trade school that's more popular in Europe. And that was it. I started off in England, coming out of the hotel school program there, and basically just decided to get as many experiences as I could anywhere and everywhere, and just really enjoy the journey and sense of the self-discovery as I wound my way through the pathway of becoming a general manager. So I was very fortunate. I was able to work in food and beverage. So that means I was involved in the food side, right? Like working in kitchens and in a restaurant and running bars. I worked in the front office, greeting our guests. I worked in sales. And I was able to work in many different countries in Europe, which was a huge experience, really understanding how different people think and even approach their careers, be it France, Germany, Italy, etc. Then 25 years ago, I landed in San Francisco and never looked back. I have been here ever since. I've been running small hotels and large hotels, and just really enjoying the journey. And even though I've been a general manager for over 20 years in the Bay Area, every day I learn something new. Every day there's a challenge that I really need to think about fixing. But then every day is exciting, right? No 2 days are the same. There's always a new adventure, new people to meet, new things to make decisions on. So really, really has been a lot of fun for me. So let me tell you a little bit about my hotel. It is an iconic historic hotel in San Francisco. It's nearly 100 years old. We have about 400 rooms in the hotel and nearly 300 employees. And I'm responsible for all of that. And so sometimes I feel like I'm the mayor of a small city because there's a lot of folks working in the hotel and there's a lot of different departments that they're working in. So if you are considering a career in hotels, you might think, my goodness, what do I do? What could I do? Is it even for me? Well, let me give you some examples of what you could be doing. If you like talking to people and you're a little bit more confident and like to be in the front line, you might be working at the reception desk, checking people in, for example, or leading that team in a management position. You could be working in the sales department, signing contracts and deals for groups to come to the hotel. You might be working in the marketing department, being more creative and coming up with PR and social media initiatives to drive revenue and interest in the hotel. Or you could be working in the restaurant or the bars of the hotel or the banquet department. And maybe you say to yourself, I'm a little bit shy, I really don't want to be in front of people so much. Is this right for me? Well, there's a lot of situations and scenes behind the scenes opportunities for you as well. You can work in the accounting department. So if you're good with numbers, that would be great. Revenue management and reservations. You're dealing a lot of analysis there as well. You could be working in culinary, maybe working in the kitchens or running the kitchens, depending on where you want to be. So really a lot of opportunities to look at all these facets in this little city of a hotel and see where your comfort zone is. And that could be your focus. Or maybe you just move around from one department to another as you're exploring and discovering what you really like and don't like. And I actually did that. You know, when I was getting all these different jobs in Europe before I came to the States, I worked in food and beverage and I loved that. I worked in the front office and I liked it. I wasn't very good on the finance department, I'll be honest with you. It's not my forte, but that was fine. I got the experience and I managed a team of 8 people in finance. I know enough to sound like I know what I'm saying, but I got experts that I rely on, and that's okay too. Some people love the sales side, right? There's an opportunity there if you're a really outgoing person. So lots of opportunities, as I mentioned, to really look at what would work for you in many different facets. There's many ways you can start in hospitality. You could start off as an hourly employee. In other words, you come in and you're doing a job and you don't have supervisory responsibilities. And you could then potentially work your way up to becoming a supervisor and maybe the department manager, and then potentially even hire a director or the general manager like myself. Or maybe you don't want to be the boss. That's okay too. There's a lot of positions for folks who want to really be good at what they do and be consistently good, but they don't want to be supervising other people. Maybe it's not their thing. And that's great. You know, I can tell you at this hotel, we have a lot of our colleagues, we call them our employees, who've been here 20, 30, even 40 years. And they've been doing the same thing for all those years. And they love it. They come in every day and they are so excited to do what they do, you know, and that's great, right? I love being surrounded by folks like that. And then there's the young managers who are working their way up, right? They're discovering their career path, and they're aggressive, they're hungry, they want the next thing. They want to become a general manager or be their own boss. And they move around more frequently, so they learn different departments and they try and get a promotion quickly, and they really, you know, are always looking for the next new thing to stimulate themselves and get excited. So lots of opportunities, whether you're coming fresh out of university or community college or even out of high school, there's something for everybody. It's just a matter of probing a little bit and finding out a little bit more. What can I do? How does it work? What could it lead to? And you know, and that's the fun part about hotels, right? As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of opportunities career-wise, and there's a lot you can do. The question is, if you know now what you want, that's great. If you don't, it's okay too. You know, I mean, remember, I was going to become a dentist, ended up being a hotel general manager. I thought I'd live in Europe. I'm living in the States. Love it. You know, some folks have started off saying, I only want to work in food and beverage. I just want to run restaurants. That's what I love. And after a few years, they realize, hey, I really enjoy working in another area, or I'd love to own my own bed and breakfast in the future. So again, lots of opportunities, lots of fluidity, and lots of areas and opportunities to try, maybe fail sometimes and try something else. We encourage that all the time. You know, we have an expression that I love. It says you hire for attitude and you train for skill. And so that might be you, right? If you're looking for your career, your next career step, and you're not sure what it looks like, that's okay. Hotels could work for you. You know, personally, as a general manager, I hire many people and help many students grow through mentoring and internships. And they get shy to admit that they're confused and unsure. And I tell them, it's okay. You know, I made mistakes when I was younger. I came across some dead end streets and kind of backpedaled and tried something different until I got it right. And I was given those chances. It's my job now to give chances to the next generation and next generation, because it is such an amazing opportunity, right, to do this. So really, if you're curious and you've got a passion to even look at hotels and hospitality, there's a lot of areas you can look at. You bring your passion with you, good energy, some flexibility, because we really are running a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation, and a sense of adventure. Hotels are all over the world, right? So if you wanted to travel, you could travel all over the world through your jobs, like I did. But if you want to stay in the Bay Area, that's good too. You know, there's lots of hotels here. I've been here for 25 years and I've worked in about, I think, close to 15 hotels. So all within San Francisco. Lots of benefits for working in hotels. Let's touch on that a little bit for you. You know, you get to travel if you want to, as I mentioned. We get really good perks. If you work for a large company, you get discounts on hotel stays. So you can go to Maui, New York, Boston, you can go to Italy and get incredible deals because you work for a large company, for example. We provide free uniforms, free meals. We get great vacation benefits, medical coverage for most positions. And really then also an opportunity to sometimes meet very interesting people, guests who are staying with us, sometimes celebrities. I was very lucky a few years ago. I met Barack Obama when he was the president of the US, and that was quite a moment for me to actually meet the president of the US. So who knows? You don't know who you're going to meet, but it's always fun and it's always exciting. So to kind of recap real quickly, I do this because I love it. It took me a while to find this, when I was at the equivalent of high school back in Europe. But I checked a few different things out, found my niche, took me a few years, made lots of mistakes along the way, still make mistakes today, even though I've been doing this for a long time, but it's so much fun. And it's given me great satisfaction and a great enthusiasm for encouraging the next generation to join the industry. So hopefully I have given you a little snippet of what it's like to work in a hotel. If you have questions, let me know. And I look forward to following up with those questions either now or later on.
Hey, Michael, I have a question for you. Thank you for sharing too. I heard Obama stayed there. That's what I was thinking. I was going to ask you that too. I was like, yeah, is it true Obama stays there? Question for you. So pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, post-pandemic, we hear like on the news, like hospitality, all of that's been kind of taken like, a hit a little bit. What are you seeing now? The vaccination things are kind of coming into the fold. What do you see the workforce, the need, the industry looking like post-pandemic?
Well, we certainly have been hit the hardest, Alex. That's a great question. Thank you, because we're dealing with this kind of day by day right now. The biggest drop in unemployment, actually the biggest dip, has been in hospitality, because we are one of the largest industries, definitely in San Francisco as well, in the Bay Area. So we need to recover fast. The good news is that we will rebound, because there's always a need for travel, whether it's business travel or leisure, catering events. People are going to get married, they want to stay in hotels and so on. For somebody who's coming into the industry, right, there's a high school student listening to this right now thinking, oh my goodness, is this the right time? It's always the right time. There's so many opportunities continuously. There's always this movement. I am continuously hiring folks, and helping them get in, get to the next step, move on, and so on and so forth. So the industry will probably start rebounding in San Francisco next year. We thought it would be this year, but it's starting pretty sluggish. But I think from 22 and 23, we really will see a return to some much higher numbers. And we will definitely start hiring people in more earnest probably next year, actually.
You would think after all this time we've been on Zoom, I know how to hit the unmute. Yeah, no, thank you. And so I'm just looking at some of the chat boxes here. Are employees allowed to is there opportunities where they can live in the hotel while they're working at the hotel? Is that something that actually, I saw in a movie once too, and a student asked that, but is that a thing?
It's a thing in resorts. So in city centers, typically not. In Marin or the Bay Area or San Francisco, you're not going to live in the hotel. But if you're working in a resort that's a bit remote, they typically provide housing. In fact, my very first job was in Italy, in this resort on an island just off Italy. And I lived there for 9 months in what they call not student housing, employee housing. I shared a room with another guy, and we just lived and worked pretty much 7 days a week. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun, because all the money you earn, you save, because you're not spending it on anything. But that's really mainly if you're working on a cruise ship or in a resort.
Thank you. And just an FYI, everybody, I'm going to put some information about the hospitality program College of Marin offers as well too. So if students are interested in possibly taking classes, while industry's rebounding, that's always an option. So I'm just going to put that in there. Michael, an attendee asked, what for you as a general manager, what does a typical day look like? You clock in and then what does that day look like? I imagine it's not like a 9 to 5, 8 hours. I imagine you're putting in some hours.
Well, GM is a bit different to everybody else, because my job is to kind of oversee many, many different departments, up to 12 in the hotel. As I mentioned earlier, it's like running a little, a small city. So first of all, nothing ever goes to plan for me. There's always something else coming up. But typically I'll get in early in the morning. I like to check in, do my rounds, say hi to the team, check my emails and so on. I usually go and join the housekeeping ladies for stretching, before they go up to the rooms, we do a little bit of stretching and warm up, and We chat a little bit about what the day looks like. I'll then have a couple of meetings with my managers and we set out the day. And then between different meetings, I'm usually like the air controller. You might not see me as often, but I'm kind of working with each department head and making sure we're on track with our tasks and projects and where we're at. And, I work with ownership on long-term plans and so on. So it's very diverse. I'll have a call with the sales director and we need to come up with a marketing plan for Instagram. What's our social media focus going to be for the next month? The next minute I'm talking about an issue with plumbing in a guest room, so it's always different. It's always varied.
Thank you. Another question. We have quite a few questions coming here in the box. Well, yeah, so we'll just go down. We'll start from the top, work our way down. A piece of advice you would give to someone who's going into the hospitality industry. What's a piece of advice from your 25 years?
Yeah, for me, my favorite word is passion. And I always say, even when I talk to students at university here locally, I say, find your passion. Everybody has that pilot light, right? Like on the stove. You got to light it, and if you're really passionate, you'll find what you're good at, and sometimes you just need to stumble and kind of just go for it, and figure it out along the way. But passion will get you through everything, and a determination to be successful, and just don't give up. There's, like I said, the knocks make you stronger.
Thank you. Another question. Well, an attendee. Oh, well, that's actually you. Nope. Yeah, that was you. See, tell us an interesting story about something that happened to you at work. I'm hoping you'll tell us the Barack Obama story. Since it was so like, it was a moving time. Like you once, he rolled up in the motorcade. He popped out. Would you like?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. As I mentioned, I'm from Europe, and I've been living in the States for a few years, and I was working in a hotel downtown, and we're hosting a luncheon that he was guest speaker at, and just the whole protocol from a week before, working with the FBI. I mean, they would sweep that hotel 3 or 4 times to make sure that it was as safe as possible. I mean, you'd be surprised how thorough they are. Anyway, long story short, people were paying a fee of like $25,000 to get a photo with Mr. Obama. And I somehow finagled to get a photo, not only to get a photo with him, but I got it for free. And I was the first person to get a photo because I was the GM, and they snuck me in through the side door, and I bypassed everybody else. But I remember waiting there, with the FBI with the, earpieces and their dark suits, like in the movies. And then they just whispered to me, "Okay, Mr. Pace, the president will see you." And I walk into this room, and he's just standing there, and he just like, it's just overwhelming, quite honestly. And then, you get opportunities like this in a lifetime, right? I got my photo of me standing there with him, this guy towering above me, thinking I am meeting the President of the United States, and this is just another day at work. Pretty amazing.
Okay, I'll get to the questions. I've just got it. This is from was he tall? Was he short? Does he sound like how he sounds when he's talking? Like when he's doing his press conference, does he this exactly with the slow talk and the cadences?
That man is incredibly inspiring. Just his presence and his tone and his demeanor. He was calm and gracious. He asked me about my work and how I was doing, and he knew about the company. And it was very impressive. I thought he would just like take the photo and move on, but he took the time. Very gracious man.
Thank you. Okay, I'll get back to the questions, everybody. Sorry. Another question. How is the work environment right now in the hotel? So you're there in person. Is some of the work like remote? Like what are some of the changes that you guys had to kind of implement as a result of COVID within the hotel?
Yeah, well, first of all, as you can see, I'm dressed casually today because we've been working from home a few days because of the situation with the occupancy and so on. So definitely a bit more casual. The number one thing that we're focused on is safety and security. That's been our big focus. So really training the team and providing the protective equipment for them to feel safe, and making sure our guests know that too. That is absolutely priority 1, 2, and 3 right now.
Are there, I'm gonna bundle a couple of them together. Are there specific positions you recommend for a person to get started in general manager? You mentioned work in as many departments as possible. If someone wants to do that track, and what's the best way for them to kind of research or prepare? Let's say if they want to do general manager, like what's the best way for them to kind of, I guess determine like, is this what I want to do? I want to get myself set up on this path. What would step one be, would you say?
Step one is definitely do the research, maybe just go online and try and find out a little bit more and talk to your career counselor about what that would look like. And then the other thing I would say is, I mentioned earlier, you can start in an entry-level position with no degree and work your way up, or you can get a diploma like myself, or you can get a degree from Harvard, right? Depends what you want to do. But in hospitality, it's one of the few industries where you can really be successful, irrespective of where you went to college, or if you went to college and if you did a 2 or 4 year degree, there's always a path forward. I worked for a small company called Kimpton Hotels for many years here in San Francisco. It was founded by a local person, Bill Kimpton. The best GM we had, the best general manager we had, one of my counterparts, was a gentleman called Jimmy Horde. He had started off as a valet parker, so parking cars for guests who pulled up at the front, and became a doorman. Never had any intention of working in hotels. He was the most eloquent and elegant and well-spoken general manager, and put me to shame, quite honestly. I would look up to Jimmy and say, wow, I went to hotel school to do this, and he started as a valet parker, and he just looks the part so much more than me, but he had the passion, and he just had that desire to take care of people and be the front man and be there for his team. And it was natural to him. So there's many ways you can work your way up. You don't need to know exactly how yet. The key is just to get the ball rolling.
And you mentioned you worked in small and larger hotels. Like what's, well, obviously besides, the amount of, people that are staying there, but like if a person wants to start off and they're deciding between small and like large hotel, how would they make that decision? What are like the differences that you've noticed?
So, I always tell everybody, don't worry too much about the style of hotel or what you want to be in the future. Just take it step by step. I kind of allowed myself to take jobs that I really had no idea what they would be until I got there. And you just throw yourself into it and figure it out, because you don't know. People always say, oh, I want to work in a luxury hotel, but maybe you work at what we call a limited service or a service express hotel, like a Courtyard Marriott or something, for example. And maybe you love that style and you love the clientele, so you don't know until you do it, whether it's going to be right for you or not. As I mentioned earlier, I worked in an airport hotel when I was in England. I didn't like it too much because I would get very stressed whenever we had literally buses of canceled flights, folks coming in, and they were mad at everybody, right? So you got the brunt of it. I had a colleague who thrived. She was like, bring it on. We're going to bus of angry people. I'm going to make them happy, whilst I was just hiding in the back saying, please don't do this to me, So you kind of find your niche. You figure it out pretty quick.
Thank you. Okay. As a general manager, do you have, oh yeah, yeah. So as a general manager, so you mentioned like, working like with the guests, like, that's, you enjoyed that. So as a general manager, are you still able, is that still part of your job function, or do you talk and just guide most of the employees right now?
I spend as much time as possible talking to the employees in the hotel. That's where I find out truly what I need to do differently or better with my team to improve the work conditions or listen to suggestions. But I also have guests, obviously, who I love talking to as well. So I try and balance the both of them. I find that typically in the mornings, I'm talking more to my team behind the scenes, when I do my rounds, check in with the stewarding department, see how they're doing, the kitchen staff, the housekeepers, checking on accounting. And by later on in the morning, I can go out to the lobby and talk to the guests. In the evenings, I usually do a round of the restaurants and the bars and check in with the folks there. So it's always a little bit different. Sometimes I have a drink with a client. That's also fun as well.
Okay. So just, you are the mayor. You're the mayor of the hotel. Walk around, shake hands, kissing babies. I got it. Okay. So one last question. And then I'm going to introduce Tahirah Dean to everybody. We're going to transition to Tahirah. Besides Obama, thank you for answering that. I was curious. I was thinking about that. As a general manager, what was your favorite day where you look back and you're like, man, like this is my job. I love my job. What besides the Obama being there, like maybe even like a day to day, like, you know, man, you look back and you're like, wow, this is great. This is why I'm doing this.
Well, I had a funny incident when I thought it was kind of interesting. It was a New Year's Eve and I was running a hotel downtown called the W Hotel, which is a very kind of hip and trendy place, you know, DJs playing music, a big bar scene at night. It was New Year's Eve. We had a big New Year's Eve party of like 2,000 people. So I'm trying to manage that, thinking I'm supposed to be running a hotel, but it feels like I'm running a nightclub. But anyhow, we ended up having, you know, at midnight, a viewing of the fireworks in San Francisco from one of the suites on the, you know, the very top floor. And I ended up with my owners who are from China, and they were very conservative, and, you know, we had to follow a certain protocol with respect to ownership. Then I had bumped into, there was a show on TV called Say Yes to the Dress. And, you know, they were there, you know, so I asked them to come up and they said yes. And we had a band called Capital Cities that nobody had heard of. They were playing live. This is before they became big. And I said, hey, you guys want to come up after you finish playing and come up to watch the fireworks? So I ended up watching the fireworks with the crew from, and the main protagonist from Say Yes to the Dress, my owners, and this band, you know, all grungy with the big beards and everything. And it was such an eclectic mix. It just, there were these three different groups, but everybody was getting on really well. And I thought, this is really cool. This is my playground. I get to do this, interact with people. I had no idea in the morning I'd be with them at midnight. So you just never know.
That's cool. Okay, man. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, Michael, thank you for, you know, taking time out of your day to, you know, talk with everybody. And feel free to stay on. If you have to leave, we completely understand. But thank you. So now, everybody, we're going to check in or have a conversation with Tahirah Dean, who is, I'll let you talk about everything. So Tahirah.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to say to Michael, I love Say Yes to the Dress. I'm really girly that way. I love that show. So that's so cool that you're able to meet them. Hi, everyone. As Alex said, I'm Tahirah. I'm an attorney at Legal Aid of Marin in San Rafael. And I'm so happy to be here with you guys today. In my, you know, kind of in my work life or even personal life, I do try to mentor people about law school and give them, you know, all of the kind of like disclaimers of, you know, why you should or should not go. So yeah, I'm happy to connect with people afterwards too. It's such a big decision. I feel like law school is similar to, you know, it's such a big decision on the same level of like who you're going to marry or, you know, if you're going to buy a house, it's such a big investment. So you really need to make sure that that's something that you want to do. So when I was thinking about how to prepare for the presentation, I really had to go backwards in time, back to the days before I went to law school, back to before I even graduated college. And it was sometime between middle school and my freshman year of high school when I decided to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And by that point, I had already crossed off the following things from my list. One, that was pop singer. I was in the choir and I loved singing. And I come from a family of musicians, so that was a possibility. Two, actress. I loved drama in the 6th grade. So that was another possible career track for me. 3, a writer. I loved reading and writing, and books were my life. So of course, I thought I could maybe potentially become an author. And you see, at that age, even though all of these ideas were brewing in my head, I also knew that I couldn't sustain the life of a true creative. And that is someone who survived not by material things like money, but those who live off the energy of the passion that they get from pursuing something like the arts. Because I grew up mostly poor, I wanted to build a life for myself where one day I could provide my children with the things that I never had. So for me, that meant a pretty kind of standard, high-powered type of jobs, which are doctor, lawyer, engineer, those you know, kind of boxy jobs. And because I was absolutely terrible at math and science, I chose the law. Back in those days, I had this very specific idea, or rather generalization, about what lawyers do. They're basically misconceptions. And so I want everyone to be mindful of them. The first one is lawyers make a lot of money. The second one is you're really good at arguing, so you think you'd be a good lawyer. And number three, lawyers work insane hours. And so if you want to become a lawyer, you're not going to have time to devote to family or friends, i.e. there's no life outside of work. So I'm going to go through those points and discuss them a bit for you, break them down. So first of all, it shouldn't be a shocker, but lawyers all aren't at the same level of salary. We don't all make the big bucks that you see in movies. Those people that make the big bucks are generally the corporate attorneys. Those are people that are working in law firms that have their clients as just companies. So, working for, if Google can be your company, Apple, all of those big ones, that's usually, if you're serving those kind of tech companies or any company like that, that's when you're able to get closer to making those big, 6 figures plus. The second type of lawyers, which I fall into this category, are the nonprofit attorneys. So these are people that generally you're working for, your organization is getting money from donors or from the government or from grants. And so you're generally working, your clients are going to be everyday people, and you're working based on a salary from these grants and these donations. Your clients are generally under federal poverty guidelines, and so they're not paying you directly. You're getting money from another source, and generally that salary is lower because it's donation based or based on grants. The third type of category of lawyers usually can fall into solo practitioners. So those are people that have their own business, their own law firm that they created. It can just be, sometimes you'll see law office of, Daniel Rubin, right? And that means that an attorney has created his own office. Maybe he has a few paralegals, but it's going to be him and maybe one or two other attorneys. Sometimes solo practitioners can definitely make a good amount of money based on their practice area, but it's also running a business, just like any other small business, it's hard to bring clients in and to sustain a revenue. So some people are very good at that, sustaining that business, and others, it comes and goes due to the economy or just the times. So it depends. Then also you have your attorneys that are working maybe in Washington. They're working for Congress people. They're working in think tanks. They're doing research. I will say the good thing about being a lawyer is that you can fit into different segments of society, different places. And even if you're not using your JD, your degree in the kind of like going to court sense or doing something that only lawyers can do, you can still get a job, and that is very useful, and your law skills are very useful in a different manner. So in regards to finding a job as an attorney, I would definitely say in figuring out which category you're in, you might go into law school thinking you're going to make go for those corporate jobs, the big firms, but then you end up doing nonprofit work. And so all of that, those kind of variations of where you're going to end up really depends on what your plan is before law school, your motivations to go to law school. During law school, what kind of internships do you get placed in, your connections that you make there, and what's your targeted approach to finding a job after law school. And then no matter what, in terms of salary, if you make a lot of money as an attorney or you don't, you're going to be dealing with a serious amount of student loans. And so that's what I always preface, this whole question of, should I go to law school? It's, are you going to be able to sustain those student loan payments? Because that's still such a major issue in this country right now for everyone, especially for attorneys. Second misconception, lawyers are, all people who know how to argue. And so if I'm good at arguing, I should go to law school. Well, whether or not you are good at arguing, that could factor into your, assessment of whether you should go. But you should know that you don't have to be good at arguing or articulating, different types of kind of speeches or whatnot. You could become a transactional lawyer. And those types of lawyers, they don't go to court at all. They're not even really interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, other than maybe their client and their bosses. That work is done, could be like contract work. It could be working against the government. And it's all things that are, done on paper, sent off in the mail, or maybe the other opposing party will come in to sign agreements or whatnot. But there's no court involved. So I think that's also good to know, because some people, they don't like the other side. And so the other side is called litigation. That's anything that's taking you to that court to represent your client and go before a judge. I feel like a lot of people thought that when I said that I wanted to go to law school, they would automatically think about movies and film and television shows when there's a criminal case. And so they'd be like, oh, but what if you have to represent someone that is guilty, and you don't, that's uncomfortable with your moral decisions. And then I would just think that you don't actually know anything about lawyers, because that's only one type of lawyer, a defense attorney. And that's why it's important to really research the type of lawyer that you think you would like to be, because that's just one type. There's so many different types of attorneys out there that are in that court world, the litigation world. Okay, so third misconception is all lawyers work insane hours and they have no life outside of work. That definitely depends, once again, on the practice area. If you are making those big bucks in those big firms, meaning your clients, once again, are corporations, you're definitely not going to have normal people hours. You will be working nonstop, even on weekends. And I have a lot of friends in that world. And I myself was in the corporate sector for like a year and a half. And it was hard work. And, you're really, committing to serving your clients and serving your firm to make sure you get, the hours done, and making sure that you're doing everything, kind of the beck and call of the client. It is very demanding, but you get compensated for that. And not everyone does that for all of their life. Some people devote maybe 5 to 10 years to that lifestyle, and then they're able to have their money, have their student loans paid off, and then they're able to go into the nonprofit sector. And one of my bosses is like that. He spent a lot of years in the corporate sector and then was able to transition to working in the nonprofit sector. Is much happier because he's doing a different type of law in terms of helping people. But he got that really great experience working in the corporate side for all those years. I would also say that people in nonprofits and in government jobs, if you're a government attorney, they also work really long hours in terms of, government jobs. Mostly it's like 9 to 5 generally, but for certain government attorneys, you're having heavy caseloads. Like maybe you're not, in court past 5 o'clock, but you go home and the list of cases you have to sort through for the next day in court is really burdensome. So that being said, my work-life balance is really great. And I've always been able to make time to have a good balance. And you really have to, you have to figure out what works for you. And I would also say that, even like people that aren't lawyers that are doing other types of work, they're working really hard too. They're working past 9 to 5, just in a different type of work. And so I feel like these days, especially in the US, like when our mentality is so work oriented, we work a lot generally anyway. So if you have passion for the law, then spending that extra hours, it's not going to be, it's not going to be so difficult for you if that's something that you love, right? That's the same with any type of job, I feel like. So to go back into, how I got to where I am today, I would like to say that I ultimately decided on law school because of my love for reading and writing. I think that those are important skills that can transfer into law school, and because that's something that lawyers do all the time. You're really not going to get around that. You can get around, speaking to people, but you can't get around reading and writing constantly. That's going to be your bread and butter. So I went into college with that mindset. I did English and political science as my majors, double majored, and I minored in Spanish. I wanted to go to law school I had different ideas of it. One was to help the Muslim community and do Muslim civil rights. I also had an interest area in immigration. My grandfather is from Honduras, so that was really important to me, and that's why I tried to work on my Spanish as well. I also really heavily researched the costs and benefits of going to law school. I looked for any article online about the debt ratio at the time and the job market and the level of happiness of law attorneys versus those that were depressed. And I just made sure to talk to those that were attorneys. I regret not having done as many internships when I was in undergrad and even in high school, because that would have helped me understand what a lawyer does even more. But I did try to talk to and research as much as I could about what it's like to become a lawyer, because yeah, like I said, it's a very calculated decision, in my opinion. For me, also, another thing that is maybe a little controversial is in terms of looking at U.S. Weekly News report and the schools, how they're ranked. There are a lot of law schools in the U.S., but they're not all equal. Some of them are not accredited. So if you get into that law school, it's easier to get in there. But when you graduate, you might not be able to take the bar exam based on the accreditation, or if you are able to take the bar exam, which you need to be licensed attorney, you might not pass it, and then you're in really deep trouble, because that's how you are able to become practice, get a job, is having a law license. So those schools that are towards the bottom of this like U.S. Weekly News report, which really is definitely based on how much marketing a school does and how much money they're putting into getting at the top of the list. There is something to say about the schools that are higher on that list, because the accreditation, how good the professors are, the knowledge that you're getting from those schools, and then also the name. I went to a really great school, Boston College, and I looked at their job statistics of those that graduated, and they were really good. High percentage of people that graduated were able to get jobs. Higher percentage of those that graduated were able to pass the bar exam. Those are really important factors, because there are lots and lots of reports of people that graduate from low tier schools and they can't get a job. So they've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're really screwed because they don't have any way to pay that off. So I feel like that's really important that people need to remember when looking for law school and applying. So yeah, I pretty much gambled on law school, because I only applied to I think this is actually a lot. I applied to like 10 schools. I got an aid-based voucher. So definitely look into that if you're interested through LSAC. That's the body, at least that's what they were called, like back when I applied, that is able to do that process, the LSATs, the LSAT score, and give vouchers for those that, depending on your income, or your parents' income rather, give you free waivers to apply to law school. So I applied to just the ones that were basically in the top 30 of that new U.S. Weekly News list. And I was blessed enough to be able to get into, a school that was like ranked like top 22. I think maybe now they're like 25 or something. And, even though I didn't graduate at the top of my class, I still got a really great education, and graduated with that school that has such a great name, that was able to open up a lot of good opportunities for me. I did, when I graduated, I did immigration law. I was on both the family-based side, so that's like marriage-based petitions, asylum work. I did go to court, and then I also transitioned to doing the corporate side, where that was working for those big companies, tech companies, helping get their workers to the US, and working in roles as engineers, and everyone that's working on the apps and all of that fun tech stuff. So now I transition, I'm in my 4th year of being an attorney, and I work at Legal Aid, like I said. I'm serving, underserved populations of people that, can't afford legal services otherwise. And so that really helps me to feel that I'm doing good work and helping people that are really deserving of work. Wading through the legal process is hard. It's hard even for attorneys. So if you don't have help, don't have access to that world, that information, having an attorney at a legal aid or a nonprofit is really a life changer. I work in the housing department. So anyone that's going through evictions, anyone that has disputes with their landlord, people come to me and I'm able to sort those out for them, able to represent them in court. And so if you guys know anyone that needs that help, you definitely send them our way, and we're able to advise on those issues and keep people in their homes in these really difficult times. So in terms of more advice, I want you guys to just make sure that, like I said, that this is something you really, really, really want to do. It's such a big investment. As you know, the economy is in the tanks, and the student loan debt crisis is insane. If you are going into law school on a whim, that's not a good idea. It has to be something that, in my opinion, if you died tomorrow, then you would have regretted never gone to law school. And so, if one day you think you're going to regret not going, then of course do it. Definitely study for the LSAT. Make sure you do your research. If you get a high enough score on the LSAT, that's the qualifying exam to get into law school, just like the SAT. If you get a high score, then you can get good scholarship money. So that's another win. Also explore part-time programs. There are some schools that allow you to work and go to law school at the same time. There's pluses and minuses with that. They're doing the part-time programs, but just do your research and see if that works for you. The other important part is knowing that you don't have to be a lawyer to do legal work, in terms of being in that space with lawyers and helping people with legal issues. Paralegals are so important to our jobs. And in some practice areas, like in the corporate immigration world that I was in, paralegals did a lot of the bulk of the work. The paralegal is the one that's going to fill out all the paperwork, meet with the client, and it's just the attorney that really reviews the paralegal's work and signs off on it. I know that it looks like it cheapens the work that we do, but it just really shows you that you're able to, learn a skill and not, go through the process of law school if that's still something that you're interested in. Being a paralegal is really great too. And they have competitive salaries. It just depends on, once again, the practice area. So I would say, start interning, start volunteering. Like, for example, at Legal Aid, you can volunteer and do different little, admin roles, or, shadow us to see what it's like. That goes the same for other small firms or other nonprofits. Just being in the same environment with lawyers will give you a taste of what it's like to be a lawyer. I would also say, do it for the right reasons. If you go into that world, into the legal world thinking, you're doing it solely for the money, you might find yourself really disappointed when you're working 100 hours a week and you're exhausted because of the stress and the lack of time for yourself. If you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're doing it for, the intellectual stimulation, if you're doing it for the thrill of, arguing a case, or the thrill of, sinking your teeth into something that's challenging, I think that's great. But I wouldn't necessarily say do it for the money. If you're doing it also for the sake of doing good in the world, helping people, also make sure that you understand what that world is, because I know a lot of people that enter the world, enter the world of helping people in charity spaces and nonprofits, and they also get burnt out and exhausted because, for example, say in immigration, those services are so in demand that, the work of the attorney is multiplied by 100, just because of the high demand, high volume. So and of course how emotionally draining it is. So, know the reality, and then also the low pay. So for some of those jobs, you do have to know that there's a balance if you're not chasing the money. And so, yeah, I just, want everyone to know that it takes a lot of research before you apply to law school. Knowing what you're getting yourself into as much as you can. And then of course it's a leap of faith. And, and no one knows, of course, as I'm sure you've heard, if you're watching all the series of this this career series, that no one really knows what they're getting themselves into until they're there. You kind of just have to figure it out piece by piece, and know that, your good intentions and trying to do something, good work, whatever that is going to get you to the place where you ultimately want to be. I don't really believe there's any such thing as a dream job. Like, I think it's great. Like Michael maybe has found his dream job. I don't think any job is perfect. I think, we try to get to the place that we want or see ourselves. I was lucky to be able to get to that place. I don't necessarily think like any of the jobs I've had have been like dream jobs. There's always been something, like either there's like a bad boss, or there's like low pay, or there's crazy hours. There's always something, but trying to find perfection, that's not going to lead you to happiness. I think it's being able to know that, you're interested in the job that you're doing every day when you wake up. You have a supportive team with you, and you're making a difference in some way possible. You're contributing to society. I think those are good things that you want to aim at when finding a job. So yeah, sorry, some questions if you guys want to ask those.
Sure. No, thank you for sharing that. Definitely everything you're saying, that like right on. Thank you for sharing that. So there's some questions, and I'm just going to kind of group them together. So legal aid, Marin, working housing law, what does your day-to-day look like? Do is it paperwork, like you were saying, is it paperwork, is it going to court? Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so my day-to-day, usually there's a list of clients. Like I'm attorney of the day for Thursdays, and so any clients that call in needing help on Thursdays, I have to call them back. And usually whatever clients I get from Thursday, that will take me through the next week too. And so I'll work on the case during the day for each of those clients. Whatever needs to be done in terms of negotiating with the landlords to make sure that these people can stay in their houses. If that takes me to going to court, I have to go to court. Right now it's on Zoom, so that's great. And then another big component of my job is outreach. So I try to get out the information into the community within Marin that, legal aid is here and here's what we can do for you. And so, dropping off flyers to different organizations, doing presentations in the community over Zoom right now is also what I do day to day.
Thank you. And wow, there's a lot of good questions here. So attendees, if we're unable to get to all of them, I'm pretty sure Tahirah will make herself available. If that's cool, if they want to ask you questions later on, if you can provide your email. I think we have time for one more question. I'm gonna try to.
I can say too, I'm happy to answer the questions that are
okay,
here.
Cool. Okay. So let's start with like, what's your worst and best experience as a lawyer that you've had?
Worst experience, I would say, sometimes it's been like in immigration when I was doing that work, it was high stakes, right? People were trying to either, get into the country with their visa, getting, approved. Maybe they're in China, like waiting for us to get the okay for them to come in. And so they can't start work until that. So that's that pressure. Or if they were here in the US and we were trying to go to, in immigration court and, doing high stakes for these cases of people be able to stay in the country. I would say just that stress of like trying to finish things and get them filed on time. Those were some hard days. The best time was definitely when I was able to win a pro bono asylum case for this man that was from Haiti. He came to the US seeking political asylum because, of instances where, he was being assaulted due to work that he was doing. And the harm was coming from the government. And so he fled to the US and ended up in Boston where I was working, and we were able to represent him and win his case. And then a few years afterwards, we were able to get his children to come to the US. And so now they're a family in Boston and sending me pictures of them doing family things. And that's like one example that I have of like actually changing 3 lives. Without, taking his case, they would have still, he might have ended up back in Haiti and his kids never would have had the opportunity to come to the US. So that was a really, really amazing opportunity that I had.
And we're at time right now. So if anybody has to jump off, we completely understand. We'll, reconvene and meet up next week. But I'm going to just go through these questions of like, Tahirah, if you're cool, maybe 5 more minutes, I could just go through the attendee questions. What do you think it takes to be a good attorney? Like Michael mentioned passion, like that for you in your experience, like what does it take to be a good attorney?
Yeah, I would say, definitely passion. If you don't care about your clients, about the work you're doing, it takes so much work. Each little thing that we do, if you don't have that passion, then you're not going to be able to sustain the amount of work that it takes. So I would say that that's definitely important.
Do you guys offer like internship opportunities through legal aid? You mentioned like job shadow at one point, like with the current state of things as a result of pandemic, have you guys allowed interns and volunteers to support legal aid, or what does that look like?
Yeah, right now we actually do have one high school student who's helping to do some kind of admin work for us right now, like filing. And I believe that this person has, this person, we generally want people vaccinated. So like because we work with homeless populations, most of us are vaccinated in the office. But that's kind of the situation we're doing. Definitely email us and we can see what the need is right now. But it's definitely would be like kind of admin work. And if you do get to the point where you are vaccinated, then you're kind of like put higher up on the list to be able to come into the office.
And for somebody, thank you for that. For somebody who, like you were saying, reading and writing, like that's what you enjoyed. If someone who maybe not be as strong, or who may not be as strong in that area, like what advice would you give them if they're interested and they want to pursue, working, law, role in law, but reading and writing might not be like their forte, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't get around reading and writing, especially in law school. You do so much of it. But definitely it's a skill that I feel like you can improve upon, especially if you're still at the high school level right now. If you start increasing the amount of like books just for fun that you're even reading right now, and marking like how many books you're reading per month, and working on your practicing writing and different, like maybe you're taking a course at a community college, for fun. Working on those skills from now, for sure you can improve by the time you apply to law school. But if it's something that you actually like dread, you're like, I don't want to pick up the book. Like, I don't want to write anything. I can't get my homework done, because I don't like writing essays. Then I would say like definitely think twice about it. But I would consider it if you're willing to put the work in. It's always a possibility.
Okay, last question. This is a big one, so I saved it for the end. How do you feel? I was like, man, that's a question. How do you feel about the current justice system in the U.S.? Is there anything you wish was different?
Yeah, that's a great question. The U.S. justice system is definitely broken. I mean, I don't do work. I can't speak so much on like for the criminal system. That's obviously that's so broken in terms of what we need to do to provide people with justice and being able to get legal representation, or even having fair outcomes especially for people of color going into the system, and just like the kind of the world that we have created of like leading people into that criminal system. It's all messed up. It all needs to be changed. And there's so many different things that we need to change. The immigration system it's a wreck. Hopefully Biden's going to be able to provide some positive change for that. I think we're really blessed, all of us on this call, to live in California, because I'm working with people that are at risk of eviction, but because of a California law, they're able to stay for sure in their homes until June 30th right now. Whereas, I know people like in Texas, for example, there's not the same protections for eviction. So it definitely, it's great that the California system is able to, or depends on your state, is able to provide assurances and protections that we don't get at the federal level. So I think that's another thing. But yeah, we have a long way to go in improving that. And that is why, if you do have the passion to go to law school and you want to do the work at like chiseling away at the injustices that we have or the pain points in our system, it's great and do that, especially if you're someone from an underrepresented background. We need attorneys in those spaces. It's just that, there's a lot to going to law school, and that's the kind of caveat that I get. But we definitely, like some people say, like we have too many lawyers, we don't need more. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because there's so many spots where, especially in like legal services field, where there's not enough attorneys. So if you're willing to if you're willing to go to Washington and do the good work of creating policy changes, that's really where the work needs to be done as well.
Well, thank you both, Tahirah, Michael. Thank you so much for taking time. Thank you, attendees, as well, too. Great questions. Everybody's information is in the chat box. So